Hey guys, I'm Steve Flanders. I'm the host today for the 63 to 72 Longbed to Shortbed installation. This I've been involved in about a dozen times, so I can tell you from experience it's not that difficult. Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, a 4 or a 5. It also doesn't take a whole lot of time. It's about a 6 to 8 hour project. We've had them take as long as 10, but we've also had them take as short as 4. What's important is that you use this video in a companion with your printed manual. You're going to pick up some detail in the video that the manual might not show you, and you're going to pick up some details in the manual that the video might not show you. So use them as a companion together, and don't forget to pause the video along the way. Obviously we're scrunching down an 8-hour project into about 12 or 13 minutes here. What I do want to cover before you get started is a couple of mandatory items that you won't be able to do the project without. You need 6 jack stands. Get 6 jack stands. If they're all about the same size, that would be great. And also have some jack stand shims on hand because you're going to want to be able to shim the jack stands to a perfect height. You need a Sawzall. We find it's the most precision way to cut the frame. Don't try to use any other cutting method. Get a Sawzall, rent a Sawzall or whatever, and that's how we're going to cut the frame. Have some extra saw blades on hand because you're going to wear them out. We have to cut the frame 6 different times. Also, stock up on 1/8 inch and 3/8 inch drill bits. We're going to burn through a few of these. They don't last forever, so have enough to get through the project. This is something we recommend, although it's not mandatory, but a air chisel punch combo. The chisel will help take the heads off some rivets you have to remove. The punch will help remove them out of the frame. You don't need this, but it saves a ton of time during the project. So, with that, let's go ahead and get started. We'll show you the first step. So the first thing you need to do when you're putting this kit in is you got to do all your disassembly. And so what that's going to include is taking off anything that connects the front half of the truck to the back half of the truck between the front and rear cab mounts. So we're talking about your exhaust, your drive shaft, your front to rear wiring harness, front to rear brake line, parking brake cables, and any other accessories that someone may have added during the last 40 plus years. One of the key things here is that you're going to have to disconnect your fuel line, and you're going to have to be really careful when you disconnect it so you don't spill fuel all over your garage or all over your shop floor like we have here. So one of the tips I have is maybe just to take a pair of vice grips and pinch that off, or have something ready so when you disconnect it that you can plug it right away and push it off to the side, because you're going to want to reconnect that later. The hard line for your front to rear fuel line is actually going to slip through the cross member, and you're going to be able to reconnect that into the cab when you're all done with the shortbed conversion. Right now what the guys are doing is lifting the rear of the cab up, getting a little clearance so the cab mounts can slide out, and they're going to support the rear of the cab with the jack stands just underneath the outrigger panel. So our next step in this was to add support for the frame. And we're just adding support here. We're not trying to get any lift or any drop. We just want to make sure that when that first cut is made, that the frame doesn't either drop down or spring up on us. So in order to add that support, we've got 2 jack stands on each side, one directly under the front cab mount, one directly under the forward-most bed mount. And we've just slid those forward enough. And we got a couple shims on the front ones because we had to make up a little space, but we've just got them in there kind of snug so that when the frame gets cut, we're not dropping or lifting. And then the next thing we're going to do is add the template on there, drill some holes, and make our cut. The template is easy to mount to the frame, but it's imperative that the template be mounted flush onto the frame. We've realized there are a few variations in frames over the years that require slight modifications to the template or to the frame to get the templates to mount flush. One of these variations includes a spoon-like relief on the bottom of some frames. Another variation may be that there are more than one exhaust hanger. Nevertheless, make those modifications so that your template mounts flushly to your frame before you begin with drilling or cutting. The next step is to get a jack positioned directly under the cross member, and we're going to lift the jack up just enough to get the jack stands out from under the rear part of the frame. Just about like that. And then we're going to wheel the rear half of the frame out with the template still attached. Set it right back on the jack stands and finish our frame modifications. The next step is to do step number 4, which is to drill the 4 holes that are in this panel. You got 1 underneath, 1 on top, 2 on the face. We're going to get those drilled, and then step number 5 is going to be to just make the second cut in the frame to take out that unwanted extra length that turns your long bed into a short bed. So let's get that done, and then we'll move on to what's next with the template. All right, got our frame drilled, got it cut. Next part of the process is to remove this forwardmost bed mount and your rear cab mount. So Jamie's already got this side off. We're going to take this side off. This is where your air chisel and air punch comes in. What we did is we used a die grinder and made a little cut underneath, makes the chisel go under a little easier, gets those to pop off quicker. You're definitely going to want to use the air punch to punch the rivets out because they're pressed in from the factory and they're kind of swollen inside there, so it takes a lot to get them out. Anyway, once we get those off, we're going to take the center of the template, and that's going to help us relocate this cab mount. The next step is to take the template, transform it into its next use, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out, this relief area here. What that's going to do is clear the rivets on the bottom side of this cross member. That's all that gets cut out for. Now later on, that cutout's going to serve another purpose at the rear of the frame, but right now we need to get that out of the way so that we can mount this onto the frame and use it to move our cab mounts back. The template's going to slide on, so you've got some locator holes here, marked 72. Those are the ones we're going to use. And what we're going to do is we're going to line these 2 holes in the template up with the rearmost holes where the cab mount came off. And so that's going to slide on like this. You're going to see your holes. We're going to use some of our hardware that came with the kit. We're going to bolt that in place. Now just to kind of give you a picture of what we're doing here, then we're going to take our cab mount, and our cab mount, we're going to drill the 72 holes back here, the one that matches the 72 holes you used to line it up. And when these are drilled, the 2 front holes of the cab mount are going to line up in those holes. And once we have those bolted on with the hardware that came with the kit, then we're going to use the cab mount itself to template into the frame to bolt the rear 2 on. So what you've effectively done then is moved your cab mount from here back to here.
Something. It should still be at grids.
We're just about to put the C-channel in, but look, earlier in the process, we used an 1/8" drill bit in our template to drill a couple holes here in the frame, on the top and the bottom, as well as under the cab. We drilled 5 holes on each side with an 1/8" drill bit. Now, those are pilot holes. That's so that when we open those up, we're in an exact spot. What we're going to do right now, since we have our 3/8 drill out that we just used to move our cab mount, we're going to use that 3/8 drill, and we're going to go back and open all these pilot holes up that we drilled earlier to 3/8 so our hardware will fit through. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side, same thing on the driver's side, and then you've got 5 more to drill on each side underneath the cab. And then the last thing we're going to do before we slide it back together is mount our C-channel into the frame here, then we'll be ready to migrate the rear half of the frame back under the cab. All right, now just before you put the C-channel in, what you're going to want to do is make sure that you have square cuts. Now as you can see, when we cut this, we sort of walked off the square line and did a curve in. What that's going to do is it's going to leave a little extra meat on the frame side, and that frame side meat is going to cause a contact when you try to slide the 2 halves of frame back together. So what you're going to want to do is get under there, get yourself a square, make sure that your cuts are square. So in this case, we're going to have to go underneath and take a die grinder and cut off this extra meat that we left on the frame so that our two halves of frame are square and they slide back together nice and clean. Ideally, what you want it to look like is this one, where you see it's nice and square, and this side, which is nice and square. All right, so Jamie's installing the first C-channel now. One of the key parts of the C-channel, and actually the whole kit, is that we continually reuse original holes on the frame to line stuff up. So in this case, two of the holes that he's lining up with are the actual cab mount holes that are left over from where we moved the cab mount back. Those locate the C-channel into a specific spot. This is another way that we help keep the frame level and square when we slide it back together.
Here we go.
All right, jack stands are out. We've got the front of the rear half of the chassis supported by the jack. We're going to use that jack to sort of steer it up back underneath the cab, also to help us raise and lower so we can get the frame rails lined up. Sometimes this right here catches on the back edge of the cab, so as you're going under, you may actually have to drop it a little lower than you think you do, and then once it clears, come back up to make it line up. And the guys are ready to do that, so we're going to let them handle it and we'll get this frame back together.
Jamie, can you see?
Yeah.
Jamie, can you see?
Yeah.
Jamie, can you see?
We're going to take this piece we cut out of the center of the chassis. We're going to use the relief area that we cut into the template, and we're going to use that to mark this rear section of frame that needs to be modified to shorten the frame all the way down to a short bed. So this piece slides on here. You're going to line it up with the back edge of the frame, and then you're going to scribe this. Now what I've done is put a little paint on here so that when you scribe it, you can see the scribe line a little better. And so we're going to line this up just like that. Use my scribe, get a nice scribe line there, and then also scribe the oval hole here. That's going to be your rear bed mount hole. Pull that off, and it's good to have a square handy. Line that up so you can get a square line, so you can see when you cut that with a Sawzall that you can see you're cutting straight down the frame. Okay, the last step for our template is to use it to relocate your bumper mounting holes. So what we're going to do now that we've chopped the rear of the frame off, we're going to line this up again with the rear part of the frame. And we're going to take these two holes marked bump on the template, and we're just going to bore right through those. They're 1/2-inch holes, and you're just going to open those up, and that's where your bumper is going to go now that we've cut the back of the frame off. Simple, and we're done with the template after this, and then we just get back to putting our truck back together. Okay guys, that's a wrap. We've got all our modifications out of the way, and our chassis are now short beds. So don't forget, we got to take 12 inches out of the front part of the drive shaft. That's something for a professional drive shaft shop to do. It's not something you want to do in your driveway or garage. Also, you need to have the frame welded. So it's plenty strong enough if you need to drive it to a welding shop, your local professional, and have them do it, or if you're a good welder, go ahead and do the welding yourself at home. Outside of that, all we got to do is put our trucks back together and enjoy our new short beds. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of our other how-to videos to get your truck looking and driving great.